Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Port St. Lucie. This is Greg Oravec, your mayor. And this evening, I'm joined by our city manager, Russ Blackburn, and police chief, John Bolduc. And we're here this evening to discuss the city's COVID-19 response, where we are in this war against our silent enemy. And we're definitely here to take questions and answers. And if you just tuned in to our city council meeting, please allow me to apologize for being late. We wanted to start this at 5:30, but we had so much to go through as part of our situation report and an update on our response and recovery plan, followed by a discussion of the governor's safer at home order, that we went late and we just now broke and reset for this session. So I won't repeat a lot because maybe you watched the city council meeting, the special meeting, and heard a lot of this. But let me just say that in this time of crisis, our whole city team, our legislative body, the city council, and our staff, we're united to help you and help us get through this pandemic as quickly as possible. We want to get through this response. We want to slow the spread by following the guidelines. And we want to get through that so we can get to the recovery in the hopes that we will recover and then prosper. And although as the mayor, I serve as the ceremonial head of the city, in our council manager form of government, it is our city manager who is the chief executive, and he is also our incident commander. He's kind of the commander-in-chief when it comes to our response. And so let me, with no further ado, turn it over to our city manager, incident commander, and Commander-in-Chief, Russ Blackburn. Good evening, Russ.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Chief. Thank you. And we're very fortunate as a city to deliver services that the people of Port St. Lucie need and expect. They are essential services. And this pandemic is causing us to look inwardly. How can we best provide services in a way that ensures that there's no break in our continuity and that we are doing so in a way that is safe for our employees and safe for our citizens. So we've changed how we behave as a local government. We're looking at all of our services, but still with that unending commitment to keep delivering our essential services. So on March the 17th, we declared and the City Council affirmed a local state of emergency. And soon thereafter, we started looking at how we deliver our services under the CDC guidelines for both employees and for our citizens. So one of our first actions was to limit the personal interactions that occurred in our buildings. Our utility customer service function previously was done by a counter. You came in and visited us. And we have wonderful employees that have provided those services. But those have now been moved to an at-home service delivery model. Hopefully you don't know the difference, whether they're at home or not. The big difference is you can't come into City Hall, and that's for your protection and our employees' protection. We've temporarily suspended some of our programs. You know, we're very proud. The City Council has supported a great range of programs for our Parks and Recreation, everything from rock-steady boxing for folks that are suffering from Parkinson's to chair yoga for folks who are maybe a little bit older and need flexibility. Unfortunately, we can't deliver those services and follow the CDC guidelines. Very important for folks who may be suffering financially during this pandemic. We've also suspended until further notice utility cutoffs. So we've looked at our Parks and Recreation programming, particularly our parks. The services that we delivered that forced a closer interaction between citizens, we have suspended until this pandemic is under control. So you can still use our parks. You can walk, you can ride your bicycle, you can run, you can have a family picnic, but you can't have gatherings, and we don't allow gatherings of more than 9 people in our parks, because that would violate the CDC guidelines and could contribute to the spread of COVID-19. So our activities as a city have focused on how can we continue to provide services of a very high level and do so in a way that is safe for our customers and our employees. So a couple of things we've done that we think are innovative and really show you can have continuous services at a high level. So although we've reduced the face-to-face services, we've allowed for online building permits. You can apply for your permit. You can pay for your permit online. If you need to drop off plans that may be required, perhaps they're a larger format or big roll of plans for a building permit, you can do that. We have a drive-in window where you can drop those plans off safely. We also have drop-offs on the Port St. Lucie campus where City Hall is located for utility payments, for other payments, for plans that may be needed for a land development application. So we've changed our public meeting procedures. If you watched our special meeting this afternoon or you watched the meeting on the 23rd of March, you'll see we're accommodating all of the elements of public input, but doing so in a way that reduces the number of people in a room, that ensures that we have those distance separations so that people attending our meeting don't feel like their health may be compromised. It's some very, I think, well-planned and thought-out actions, but it also ensures that the business of your local government is continuing. So, in working with our staff, we've encouraged where possible that our staff work from home. In many cases, when you call City Hall, you'll be calling the same number that you always called, but that number may go to somebody's home where the employee is now working from their home, not having to come into City Hall. Their number was the same, they have their computer, they can provide the same level of service that they always did. So just a quick anecdotal for our utility customer service representatives, they're each working from their own homes. They have their computer, they have their phones. We've actually found that by deploying these individuals remotely, we've actually reduced the call waiting time over what occurred before our response to the pandemic. So your city is here. We're committed to our essential services being available to you, and we're committing to helping you and making sure that you know your water, you're going to have clean water. When you flush, it's going to be clean in a sanitary manner, that your garbage will be picked up. You can still get a building permit, and if you have a house under construction, you'll still get your inspections.
Are you still midstream, taking a break, or turning it over?
I'm turning it over, Mr. Mayor. And I think you're well aware, and many of our viewers and listeners may be aware, but the governor did issue an executive order yesterday, a stay-at-home executive order, and this would be a great time if people have questions for that order. We'll certainly try to answer. I know, and you and the chief and I, there are a lot of things we can answer, a few we can't. Or if you have specific questions about services offered by the city and how they're being impacted by the COVID-19 issue.
Thank you, Commander. That is definitely one of the talks of the town, and I'm betting that is going to be one of the hot issues. Chief, do you have an opening statement to the people of PSL?
I did not prepare one, Mayor.
Well, you always have something on your mind. What is your message to the people of Port St. Lucie as we grapple with this pandemic?
Well, as we grapple with this pandemic, my message is the same as it always is stay safe. Unfortunately, we just have a new threat in town.
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
So you can start all over because they didn't hear that?
Okay.
Good.
My message is the same as it always is to stay safe. It's a simple message, but there's a new threat in town, so there's a whole new way to stay safe, and we're all working with that from the Fed, state, county, and now city level. And really, the governor came out with the order. I know you were wrestling with a safer at home order. The county came out with one, and now the governor came out with one and preempted us before the county order went in place on Saturday. And so really, I'm here tonight. The manager asked me at the last minute to join you all, and I'm here to try to answer questions and help out. So I really don't have a big...
That's okay. Thank you, Chief. And certainly you are the right hand, one of the right hands of the incident commander, you and all of our hardworking, award-winning men and women in blue. And let me ask Avi, what is the camera that I can speak to the people of Port St. Lucie directly and look at them right there and to... To that one over there. So to the people of Port St. Lucie, I think you are doing a great job of being informed and taking all prudent measures to keep you, your families, and our community safe. I think that at this point you know the threats that our community is facing in the form of the coronavirus, COVID-19. So I won't go through and repeat all those threats. We put them onto the record at the previous meeting. But let me just talk to you about where we're at, because the numbers are still going the wrong way. When we started our city council meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, our numbers for our county were our state were 8,010, 1,058 hospitalizations, and 128 deaths. This evening, as we're here tonight at the Facebook live session, and we've gotten the update on the state numbers as we sit now here on April the 2nd at 6:45 p.m., we are at 9,008 state cases, 1,167 hospitalizations, and 144 deaths. So this is a very real threat, and it's a threat that continues to grow and requires our immediate attention. Here in St. Lucie County, we have now 48 confirmed cases. We have 18 hospitalizations, and we have 3 deaths. So we've lost another resident to COVID-19. So this threat is very real, and we still, for all of our efforts to date, have not yet flattened that curve. So we need to double down, and we need to slow the spread over this next 30 days. And the governor's order, a safer at home order, is going to help us do that. Because remember, we only have 2 tools in this fight. We have testing, where if you had reliable testing, you could test, isolate confirmed cases, and then trace contacts, and then you have social distancing. And the peak of social distancing are the measures that are now in place with Safer at Home. So those are the tools, and we need to use those tools until we get to the day that we have a vaccine and viral treatments, or this thing burns itself out, or we all develop herd immunity. But we have to manage this process. We have to flatten that curve until we get there, and that's why it's so important. And we're calling on you, I'm calling on you as your mayor, please stay home unless it is essential you leave, where essential has now been defined by our governor. If you would follow the slow the spread guidelines, you will reduce hospitalizations, you will save lives. And while we are fighting this fight, I think it's important that we all try to walk in other people's shoes. When in doubt, apply the golden rule and help others wherever and whenever you can safely. And speaking of helping others, I'd really like to thank all of those who are working hard in the fight against COVID-19. I'd like to thank our nurses, doctors, healthcare professionals, first responders, truck drivers, essential service providers, retail employees, warehouse employees, farmers, faith leaders, gas station operators, teachers, and everyone else who's working hard to get our community, country, and world through this crisis. I want to specifically thank all the people who are finding creative ways to thank our healthcare workers, first responders, and frontline essential workers for their tireless work and sacrifice. I'm wearing a blue tie this evening. I'm going to wear the same tie every day until we win this war. People are putting blue ribbons up on their front door, their porch, their mailboxes, their trees. Just this evening, the city council had the great idea of lighting up the building blue here at City Hall. We're going to call on our friends at City Electric to light their building up blue. Please join the movement. Let's shower our healthcare and other heroes with love and support, because these little gestures aren't so little, and they can be a big deal and help keep them going. Also, on a personal note, I want to thank my stepson Eric, who's working in hospital without proper PPE in service to others. Be careful, Bubba, and everyone else who has a Bubba. You know, we want them to be safe. And of course, my family, my wife, my kids who are there for me so that I can be there for you in our community. And I just want to say that we will get through this crisis. We will respond. We are responding. And the better that we can do and following the guidelines, the better we can do at staying home and cutting off this virus so that it can't spread, the sooner we'll get to the recovery. And once we get to the recovery, we can recover, we can get back to where we were, and eventually to be lifted even higher and prosper. So that's what we're looking at. Gentlemen, any additional comments before we go to the online phones?
It's a good groundwork, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So, Avi? All right. So, is there going to be any curfew set in St. Lucie County? If so, what is it? So at this meeting, we're speaking for the city of Port St. Lucie. And Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, there is not a curfew for Port St. Lucie. Certainly would ask the chief to amplify, but part of the way the order was structured by the governor certainly lays out how we would approach non-compliance. And so as looking at the number one, we believe our people in our community will follow the governor's executive order. But number two, we haven't seen a need at this point for a curfew, and certainly that could change, but we don't anticipate anything right away. And so, Chief?
Absolutely right, Mr. Blackburn. At this point in time, the governor has given us the set of rules that he would like us to statewide enforce, and I think at this point in time we've got enough here that if everybody would do what's asked of the governor voluntarily, that we don't need to impose any additional rules. Obviously, it's really about the services and the activities that are approved as what are being called essential. And as you can imagine, the things on the list mostly don't exist in the overnight hours. So, saying you're out to get your car repaired at 2 o'clock in the morning is going to be a hard sell to the road officer. So, I think we're good for now. I don't see any need to impose a curfew, but we'll reserve that right if things don't go as positively as we plan them to.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Manager. So we can't speak for St. Lucie County, but there's currently no curfew in the city of Port St. Lucie, and we will continue to take it as it comes. We will give you updates along the way, but right now the answer to that is no. The next question is, why can't you eliminate the $5 late fee for utilities? And Mr. Manager, I'm only one of 5 votes out here, but since we've already put disconnects into abeyance, I sure would like to get rid of that $5 late fee. That's something I'd be willing to vote for. How do you respond?
Mr. Mayor, it's the first time I've seen the question, and I think it's a good idea. I'm going to go back and look at it tomorrow with our utility.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the question. We're on the case. Why are there so many essential services? So this is philosophical, and maybe, Mr. Manager, I'll take this one.
Yes, please.
Because then I can't get in trouble for expressing my opinion, and the manager's got to stick to policy guidance and just to be direct, a little bit more politically correct. So as an elected official, I get to speak my mind. There is a great debate that has been going on over what is really essential and what safer at home should mean versus stay at home versus shelter in place versus lockdown. So this is a discussion happening over this policy spectrum. And what I would say is that this debate on what's essential and what's not essential, we're talking, when we in government provide a message and provide direction, especially in a time of crisis, when there's limited ability to take in all the information, make decisions, some people are panicked, the simpler you can keep it, the better the message. So staying at home is a very straightforward message. And we know that if you would stay at home, that we would limit the spread. So stay at home is very straightforward. Stay at home, lock the door, don't come out, just for the very basic things. But that's not really what the fight is. There's more nuance, especially in a free society. It's not really about locking people in their house. It's limiting the opportunity for the virus to spread. So you're seeing this policy debate play out right before your eyes in our free society, who's never dealt with this type of issue before, about how much you should limit freedom. I mean, that's really kind of at the heart of this policy debate. And what I would tell you is that regardless of what is essential and what is not essential, if we would stay home when we can, except when it's essential, and then when we went out, we followed all of the guidelines. That means if we're sick, we don't go out for any reason. That means if our family has COVID, we don't go out for any reason. That means that if we're seniors or immunocompromised, we don't go out. We get delivery. We get groceries delivered from Publix via Instacart or our favorite store and our favorite delivery service. We make those kind of decisions. We follow the 6-foot rule even at an essential business. We screen our employees. We use good hygiene. We follow the washing techniques for businesses, meaning all the high-touch surfaces are being cleaned properly at a regular interval. If we would follow all those things, then we would continue to limit the virus's spread, even with essential businesses being open. So that's what you're seeing play out. And if we don't flatten that curve, if we don't flatten that curve, I would say that you're going to see our policymakers and our decision makers fine-tune that tool over time. But I think that's what you're seeing. But ultimately, the governor made the call on what is essential and what is not. Is the sales department at a car dealership considered essential? I would refer you to the governor's executive order, number 20-91. And in that order, it incorporated 2 other documents to provide guidance. It references the Essential Critical Infrastructure Workforce Guidelines from Department of Homeland Security, and it has the Miami-Dade County emergency order that also set forth essential services. And in a very direct way, what you'll find, if you look, and you can download this from floridagov.com/executive-orders, I believe, but you can also Google Governor DeSantis executive orders, you'll find the link. But you'll get to the page and you'll check 2020, you'll hit the 2020 button, and you'll get to all the executive orders that have been issued, and then you'll see 2091, you'll see 2092. You want to download those, save them, print them, and then you'll be able to see what essential is. And when you get to the Miami-Dade order, you're going to find that it specifically includes car dealerships. And let me just find
Amendment 1, Mayor.
Amendment 1?
Yes, sir.
Let's see here. Amendment 1. Go ahead and read it into the record if you don't mind.
Okay. Amendment 1, subsection F, is gas stations, new and used automobile dealerships, and auto supply, auto repair, and related facilities, provided, however, that such businesses should ensure customers practice social distancing as advised by the CDC.
So there we go. So it is essential, But then going back to the idea that we should be urging everyone to follow the guidelines, the 6-foot rule, screening employees. What does screening employees means? It means that the actual employer checks every day to see if the employees have any flu-like symptoms or not, and if they do, to isolate them and send them home immediately. And it means a 6-foot rule, and it means cleaning surfaces, and it means everyone engaging in good hygiene and washing your hands for 20 seconds. Mr. Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
The next one is golf courses. Now, we're going to give you 2 different answers. We're going to give you the city's answer as an owner of a golf course, and then we're going to give you the guidance that we received to date. Mr. Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we'll start with the city's golf course. The Saints Golf Course, which we all know and love, is closed. It's closed because we did not believe that we could ensure that people, both using the course and interacting with our employees, could realistically follow the CDC guidelines. Now, I believe, and Mr. Mayor, you can provide information, or the chief, but the governor has clarified that he would deem golf courses as an essential service. And
You're correct.
the key issue is, for the city, was could we, as a city, as the responsible owner of the course, could we say that we would always be able to follow the CDC guidelines, particularly think about the buying the service, buying rounds of golf, the interaction that was happening, and we made the decision as a city to close our golf course.
Thank you, sir. And you were spot on the clarification we got from the governor's office that golf falls into the essential activity category. Well, and we would just, again, we're urging everyone, regardless of if you're essential or not, just to follow good practices. And if at a golf course, we're asking all operators to, again, screen their employees, to promote social distancing, to make sure that only one person at a time rides in a cart, that the cart gets washed down and disinfected properly after every one, that anyone pulling a pin does so with a disinfectant wipe and stays 6 foot from anyone else playing golf. If we could do that, we could limit the spread and get outside at the same time. But to the point, that is included as an essential activity. If you look at the governor's order, I think it's really important to point out that he says senior citizens and immunocompromised shall stay at home and take all measures to limit the risk of exposure to COVID-19, and says all persons in Florida shall limit their movements and personal interactions outside of their home to only those necessary to obtain or provide essential services or conduct essential activities. And then he goes on to define essential services. In defining essential services, he uses the Homeland Security guidance, the federal guidance that was already mentioned. He uses the Miami-Dade order that's already been mentioned. And then he goes on to define essential activities, which include worshiping, like attending religious services, and participating in certain recreational activities, taking care of pets, and caring for, otherwise assisting a loved one or friend. Now, again, with all of these things, whether or not it has the force of law, we're going to call on you to follow the guidelines, follow the 6-foot rule. What about, let's see, is washing your car essential? So I don't personally have the answer to that one. I didn't look for it. Does anyone else?
I haven't either, and
Mr. Mayor, I've been scanning through and I have not found that car washes are specifically mentioned, but that doesn't mean that I didn't miss it.
Right, so we're going to have to get back to you on car wash. I'd gone through and looked at private schools I was on the hunt for. I was on the hunt for real estate. I was on the hunt for car dealerships, but I did not have car wash on my list previously. Chief, did you?
I did not, and in this particular case, I'm going to have to recuse myself because my son actually works at that car wash. So,
Was it him that asked?
No, it doesn't look like it.
All right, so all I know right now is that gas stations, new and used automobile dealerships, auto supply, auto repair, and related facilities is essential. So given that gas stations have car washes, and given that new and used automobile dealerships have car washes, and that the term related facility is there, I'll ask the city attorney to answer this question, but I don't think anyone's going to take enforcement action on that anytime soon. And again, provided, however, that such businesses should ensure that customers practice the social distancing as advised by the CDC. Do you have anything different to add to that, Mr. Manager?
Very good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. What about landscapers? That is an essential business.
Very clear.
Yes, Mr.
Very
Mayor, in the Miami-Dade Declaration of Local State of Emergency, which is referenced in the governor's order, on page 3 of 5 of the list of essential businesses, item number U is landscape and pool care businesses, including residential landscape and pool care services. And certainly each individual needs to review this list. We're not the authority, but that appears to be listed in the essential list of businesses.
Thank you, sir. And there's another question in there about, is there a list? And there is a list, and that list can be found in the executive order. So please go to floridagov.com/executive-orders, or Google Governor DeSantis executive orders and go to that same page, download the order. You'll see it there right at the top. There's actually 2 that you want to get, but Order 91 is the big one. 92 just says it supersedes any local orders like the one the county did earlier this week. So there is a list. It's important that you print it out and look at it for yourself, because we cannot give you legal advice. We're just trying to provide you with the best guidance. But yes, Ms. Carrero Dauno, there is a list about what's essential and what's non-essential, and it is the will of the governor for non-essential businesses to be closed except for ancillary business functions, telecommuting, selling from home, etc. It's all outlined right there in the order. Can you make a limit on people in the grocery stores? You know what? We've been here since 3 o'clock, so we didn't get to watch the governor's latest press conference. We have been led to believe that he did mention occupancy. It is an issue that's come up. It's a great point. We want to facilitate that. You know, we put a lot of work in with our partners at the county. They showed a lot of leadership in doing a safer at home order for St. Lucie County. I was very grateful to County Administrator Tipton, Chairman Townsend, and the Board of County Commissioners for moving in that direction. And of course, we were able to provide feedback and input into the process. And they actually had a 25% rule in their order, which was very helpful. But that is not, to my knowledge, in the governor's order. But he did mention it during his press conference. So we're going to have to follow up. And another question here that came in is from Brian, and he's been asking a lot of good questions. He participated digitally in the council meeting. And he's also bringing up this idea, what can we do at grocery stores, and how might we, even at these essential businesses, work to limit exposure? And what I would say in all these cases is we're going to be trying to get better every single day, and the manager is going to work with our police department, our neighborhood services, and anyone else tasked with this mission to try to voluntarily and just from a collaborative approach work with all of our businesses that are still open to do a better job of protecting our people every day. And they're doing that on their own. If you follow Walmart, they're making all kinds of changes. If you follow Publix, they have boxes taped off, they have plexiglass going in. So it's just that we're having to improve on the fly. No one had a 57-point action plan to change every facet of our everyday life. So we're doing it on the fly, and we're getting better, and we'll continue to do that. I have every expectation, but it might take a while, and it might not be perfect, Brian, but we'll keep getting better. So Ms. Ballard asked, when will a decision be made on boys' basketball program for summer and refunds? Mr. Manager, I don't know if you want to provide a response to that?
Mr. Mayor, the governor's executive order, which begins tonight or tomorrow morning at 12:01, is for a 30-day period. And so I don't anticipate we'll be able to make a decision before that 30-day period is up, just because we don't want to be premature in determining what is the status of COVID as we go through this next 30 days.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sorry that we can't give you more certainty, but the manager's absolutely right. We wish, the president wishes, the governor wishes, and people across the world wish we knew exactly what was going to happen. But all we know right now is that we're committed for the next 30 days to slow the spread, excuse me, and doing everything we can. So just please hang in there. Don't have the answer for you yet. And we're just going to have to continue to take it a day at a time and keep you up to speed and communicate. Ms. Pagan, congratulations on moving to PSL. Now, I do believe that you'll be able to move in and carry out this important life activity, but what I would add is that if you're coming from an area with community spread, or if you are coming from an area that the governor has identified in one of his executive orders as being a hotspot, then you will need to quarantine for 14 days. Anyone have anything to add to that?
I definitely think that's right on point. And moving would certainly be an essential process, and people don't do that for recreational purposes. So.
Mr. Mayor, also, and you're exactly right, there are two provisions, though, in the Miami-Dade list of essential services that Ms. Pagan might want to look at. They're on page 3 of 5. One of them references airline taxis, other private transportation, providing transportation regarding automobile, truck, bus, and train. So you may be moving your belongings by truck. And then there's another one, logistics providers. It's number Y, including warehouse, trucking, consolidators, fumigators, and handlers. So again, if you were using a professional mover, I would look to those provisions. There may be other provisions as well that are very specific, but we would anticipate that would highly likely be a essential service.
Previous mentioned real estate transaction too. So.
Correct, Chief. Yes, real estate transactions, including finalizing transactions, are an essential service. I think it was mentioned more than once. I'm sorry I didn't catch it earlier, but to Sheila, what about non-businesses that give a service to the poor? Can you still work and deliver to the poor? Yes, absolutely. That is an essential service. It's identified more than once. So please keep doing that. But again, we're going to continue to urge everyone with every essential thing that you do, because remember, we're not doing non-essential things. We're at our house for that. But for our essential activities and our essential services, when we go to work or we help the poor, we help others, please follow all the guidelines in that 6-foot rule, cleaning, screening, all of those good things. You do not need documentation other than your Florida driver's license to get around town. And let me just add that you need to have proof of insurance, as any good driver would. Chief, anything else there?
Oh, your registration too, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yes, that's true. And the last time I was pulled over, it's because they said I had expired registration, but that wasn't in Port St. Lucie. That was in Martin County. Let's see here. Hazard pay. Is that one of your employees, Chief?
No, that's not. No, that's not.
Hazard pay for police, fire, city workers that have to report to work daily. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, we're operating under strained because we are dealing with a pandemic, but normal operating procedures. So our normal shifts, the normal activities that we've had for our workers at our utility plants and our police officers. So certainly we follow all of the state and federal guidelines on payment for overtime. We have union contracts that we follow. There's no unusual pay at this point, recognizing that we have people doing really incredible jobs throughout our city all the time. And, we always will be evaluating, but we've got, we have, I would say, a really positive attitude by our employees, wanting to help our citizens, following the existing rules and regulations that we have in place.
So just a yes, no is right now, hazard pay?
No hazard pay.
No. So we have to answer the call. That's the job. And you know what? In addition, and I want to put it out there right now, I love our team. They're working hard. They're working tirelessly. They're sacrificing. And we really appreciate them. We appreciate everything they're doing. And we also appreciate everyone else, the healthcare workers. And in addition to those groups that our mind turns to frequently, I also think about the stocker at the grocery store. So this person is probably working for close to minimum wage, is getting the same type of exposure as everyone else we're talking about, and probably is getting chatted up every once in a while there's no TP and disinfectant wipes on the aisle. And I just think about them too, and I think about the truck drivers and the farmers and the food supply and the person working at the plant that makes frozen dinners and so many other things. And everyone's doing what they have to do to move our society forward. So just want to thank everybody on that. So Jeff Vanderbilt, this is probably the toughest question that I've read so far. My daughter's having a baby at the end of the month. Will I get stopped leaving the state? So I don't think anyone up here knows. If they do, they can certainly chime in. But why I'm going to express my concern to you, I'm going to only you know your travel plan and how far you have to go. So how far you have to go is going to play into this. Where we're at the end of the month is going to play into this. And then if Florida's a hot spot and keep increasing by 1,000 cases a day, what will that mean to the states around us? They might start doing some stops, some checkpoints like the state of Florida has in response to concerns over other residents coming to Florida and seeding the infection. So for those reasons, if I were you, I would want to know where I'm traveling, and I would be reaching out and checking with those other states I'm traveling through to see if there's any travel advisories, to see if they're doing any highway checkpoints, et cetera. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think it's so dynamic right now, and this is what, the second? Yeah, the second. The end of the month, we won't know. I think we couldn't fathom a guess right now. I would say much closer. I wouldn't even begin calling other states right now. I'd wait till probably the third week in April and then call.
But I mean, the very active child delivery is, unless it's scheduled as a C-section or an induced labor, you don't know when that comes either. So, depending on if you're going to go for the actual delivery, you're just going to have to check in on a regular basis and make the call. And you might have to deal with the reality of that you're going to try, and you might be turned back if things go the wrong way. But we'll stay hopeful, and we're obviously keeping our fingers crossed for the successful birth of your grandchild. We hope that he or she is healthy and has 10 fingers and 10 toes. If the numbers continue to rise, obviously schools will continue to be closed. Any guidance to refund on field trips? That one we'll have to refer you to our partners and our collaborators, but a completely separate jurisdiction, St. Lucie Public Schools. So St. Lucie County has a school district and a school board, and we will have to refer you to them. Again, Ms. Tamberlin I won't be able to answer those questions directly for you regarding how they clean and sanitize our schools. We'll have to refer that to the school district for you, give you some contact information, follow up. And then in addition to the disinfecting, you also have time in effect. So the virus doesn't stay alive forever on surfaces. And if we're slowing down, Avi, this is a, thank you so much, Lori, I really appreciate it. Thanks for putting that in, Avi, and letting us close on a nice positive comment like that. Really appreciate our residents being informed and educated and doing everything they can to fight COVID. Commander-in-Chief, any closing comments?
Mr. Mayor, this is great. We really like hearing from our residents. We're going to do everything we can to provide as much information, as accurate of information as we can as your city government. Look to our website. Don't be afraid to call 1PSL. I think we'll have that information up our website, certainly www.cityofpsl.com. And then if you want to put /COVID-19, that'll get you right to our most recent updates on the website. So we appreciate the patience that everyone has had. I know, we've had folks who wanted to play soccer, over the last few weeks, and we've had to say, not a good idea for your sake and our sake. And so we appreciate you very much and know that we have a great community, and we're all going to work together to get to a better solution than we've been having the last few weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Please accept my thanks and gratitude for all your hard work and all of the team's hard work. Keep working hard and keep answering that call of how can we help our residents. We have a lot of residents in need. Thank you for all your efforts to date, and thank you in advance for everything that you're going to do. Avi threw in one more question, how we're preparing for the potential of prolonged crisis, potential second wave. So until we have new tools, we only have 2 tools. So testing, confirming, isolating, tracing, that's one tool. The other tool is social distancing. So right now we have 2 tools, and we're not happy how tool 1 is working. That leaves us with social distancing. So those are the only tools in place right now. We're waiting for treatment. We're waiting for vaccination. We would love to see herd immunity established overnight, but unfortunately you can't get that without exposure and people getting sick. We'd love for this thing to burn itself out. We'd love to get lucky. We'd love for heat to kill this as we move into our dry season and it starts getting hot as we move into summer. But we don't know. We know that we have 2 tools where one isn't working. So we're going to stay with social distancing. We're going to keep answering the president and the governor's calls to act. And that is our tool until we have new tools, regardless of how long this thing lasts. Does anyone have anything else to add to that?
When we had the H1N1 pandemic scare years ago, we actually put together a plan, a response plan, but we never ended up exercising it. So we kind of blew the dust off of that a few weeks ago, and it has been getting modified on the fly very rapidly. So what I can say to this is, how are you preparing? We're writing the plan right now that we would use in the future as we go. And we had a plan, but we've been modifying it. So I think add a couple more tools to the toolbox in this experience, and we'll be much better prepared if we have to go through this again in the fall or next spring.
Thank you, Chief. So that's an example, learning, adaptation, overcome. So that's what we're working on. And if you would go back to the council meeting that we had just before this session, the manager did a great job of explaining all the things the city is doing as a governmental organization, as a municipal corporation, to ensure its continuity of operation, right? That we can never go out of business. We always have to provide public safety. The water always has to turn on and be clean for you to drink. The toilet always has to flush. The garbage has to get picked up. We have to have law and order on our streets. Those things are the keys to successful organization, and no matter what happens, we're going to keep providing that to the last man or woman. So we're taking all steps to make sure that happens, no matter how long this crisis continues. But let's do everything we can to end it sooner rather than later. And in closing, Chief, you know, the governor's order has the force of law. And we know that not everyone does the right thing, but we're working to educate, right? Help me and help the public understand the local posture on the governor's order, what we're going to try to do, and enforcement action.
So locally in the city, obviously, I can tell you exactly what we're going to do, but I have been talking with the other law enforcement leaders around the Treasure Coast also, and we're taking an educational approach to this. The obvious thing that we want to accomplish is for everyone to be safe. This is about following the order. The governor issued the order so people would be safe, and the enforcement of the order is to keep people safe. The ultimate goal here is not to put anybody in jail or to fine anybody. However, like you said, can I use your terminology from the last meeting?
Hey, if you see fit, what a nice thing. Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you choose to be a knucklehead and you can't learn, then we do have an action plan that we can implement that will quarantine you away from other people, and we'll accomplish the safer someplace goal in a different way. But we really don't want to get to that, and that's not the object here. So I hope that helped you. Obviously, anytime the governor gives an executive order pursuant to Florida statute, it is enforceable, and violating the governor's executive order or the conditions of his executive order are a second-degree misdemeanor.
Thank you, Chief. No, we absolutely do want to help people. We know that this is stressful, that this is just hard to believe, and we're all struggling to cope, and we have ups and downs, and sometimes we might have lost someone. We might not be able to go to our own loved one's funeral. I mean, these are just crazy things that we're being confronted with, and we don't always react in the right way to difficult circumstances. So if you need help out there, any kind of help, in addition to calling us, remember that you can call 211 for help, counseling, coping, and be referred and connected to important social resources. That's a great resource. And we want to educate people. We want people to be safe. We don't want to enforce. But unfortunately, sometimes it is necessary. And fortunately for the city of Port St. Lucie, we have one of the best police departments in the world and certainly in the country. So in closing, if we can close, I just want to repeat the message to the people of Port St. Lucie that we're calling on you to stay home unless it's essential you leave, because doing so will help us win this war against COVID-19. It will help reduce hospitalizations. It will help save lives. Thank you, everyone who's working so hard, to our frontline first responders, healthcare employees, and essential service workers, the people who are restocking the grocery stores, the people that are trucking it, everyone. We will get through this crisis. We are responding. The better we respond through slowing the spread and social distancing, the sooner we can recover. And the sooner we recover, the sooner we'll prosper. Thank you, Port St. Lucie, and we'll be back with you in the days ahead. And as there is breaking news, please stay safe. Please stay home. Thank you.